What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? And Chris Abacan.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on? So welcome to Wednesday's episode. So it's a discussion episode. So Monday and Tuesday are topics. So check out Monday where we talk about how 2.9 billion records or 277.1 gigs of data was stolen and put out there. So 30 years, so 3 decades worth of potential Social Security numbers, addresses, and et cetera for U.S., UK, and Canadians. Yeah. This is the world we live in. It's a dystopic, desolate world. And then Tuesday, we talk about safeguarding the U.S. secrets with from quantum computers. So we talk about how IBM has these standards and how it's being applied to the DoD as well as Apple, Meta, and Google. So definitely check that one out. And then today being our discussion, but leaping over. So Thursday should be Ask a CISSP. So I have on Shauna Weatherly. So definitely check that one out. She has 35 years of government acquisition, contracting, you name it, experience. And now she uses that experience to help out small businesses and have the ability to enter the marketplace and do business because small businesses are what keep America going. So she's definitely doing some great work right there. So FedSubK is the name of her company. So check out FedSubK if you can. And then Friday's everything else. So movies, books, games, all that good stuff. Last week we had a riveting conversation, spoiler free, I might add, about Deadpool and Wolverine, which Danny was wrong. So just putting it out there. He's here to defend himself. And then, that's just our everything else episode. But without further ado, I give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this article is actually from industrialcyber.com. And the title of this one is DoD proposes CMMC 2.0 rule to enhance cybersecurity and defense industrial base seeks comment. So the U.S. Department of Defense, right? So like we talked about this earlier this week, actually talk about DoD and them trying to get better when it comes to how they do business, right? Or I did at least. And they're proposing to amend the DFAR, right? So DFAR is Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, right? So what this does is this is pretty much contractual agreements whenever you're working with the DoD and how they go about making sure that everyone is doing what they need to pretty much, right? Like to kind of dumb it down. They're looking at making it better, right? And I see this happening because of things that have happened in the past, right? Like when it comes to different things that they've tried to implement and where they're trying to go with this. So they talked about the whole, the 16 different pillars when it comes to protection of infrastructure, kind of, sort of, I guess is what you would call those different types of things. Different protections that are needed. And so what this is, CMMC, right, which is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification 2.0. What it does is it's a framework for assessing contractor implementation, right, for cybersecurity requirements. So it's been a little lax in the past. Like they didn't look too hard and they didn't ask for too much when it came to companies that were working with DoD on actually proving that they were following certain requirements, right? So they're getting a little more strict on that. They're getting better. They're going to get better at what they're asking for, right? So very much needed because, again, when it comes to a lot of things that the DoD and different 3 letters and even when it comes to different infrastructure entities in the United States and how they deal with third parties, they need to do a better job, right? Because it can be far-reaching on what can happen if, for whatever reason, they're getting hacked, right? Like, it's like we've already seen it when it's come to ransomware and things like that. We mentioned it. It seems like damn near every week now, right? Like we talk about Colonial Pipeline, right? JBS, different things that just need better protections because they affect the lives of so many. And so this DoD proposing the CMMC 2.0 rule to get a better handle on that and to look and be more stringent about what these companies have to supply, I'm all for it. right? So because I'm already working for a company in the DoD, like I would love for them to do the things that we have to do that sometimes end up being a headache, right? Like that the company has to go forward to do. Like I would love everyone else to experience that headache, I guess. I guess you could say, right? But no, I mean it's definitely 100% needed, right? So for the things that we do, like you can't just have it to where you rely on us just to say that we're doing things this way and not really check up on it or not be more stringent in what you're asking for, right? The world is changing to where the things that they're asking for. And I want to say, Chris, you've already looked into this a lot, right? Like the different, how many pages it is, for this new rule and whatnot. And I know you're gonna speak to it, but like there's a lot that they're asking for. And I'm like, I have not read it. Admittedly, I have not read it, but I'll probably look at it and be like, okay, well, maybe we aren't doing as much as I thought we were. It just seems like a lot, but more can be done. You know what I mean? But Chris, what's your thoughts on this, man? You think it's something needed, not needed? What you thinking?
I think it's definitely needed, right? Because again, contractors, specifically Prime or anybody wanting to win contracts with the DoD, they've had to self-assess and self-attest to compliance or really to that they're meeting the 800 NIST SP 800-171 revision 2 assessment requirements, right? So that they're making sure they're hitting all those 300 some determination statements in there that they're saying that they are performing at that time of award, right? At the time of contract award, right? But clearly the DoD has made it a case to where they want to check that they want to make sure that they're actually doing this, right? There's been no audit or there's no type of there's no attestation, there's no certification and things like that involved, right? So from the government perspective, right, let's say you're an agency that works for the government, or you're subsidiary or something of, let's just say maybe the Social Security Administration, right? They send down auditors, right? They send down they send auditors to check up on their, if it's a division of their government, they audit those information systems based on NIST 853, right? Which is a lot more stringent than NIST 800-171, right? But they do an audit, which is paid for by the government, right? In what I assume is probably the case, right? They hire contractors. They've got the big auditors out there, right, or the big federal auditors out there that do that type of support. And they come up with a list of deficiencies, and then they submit that, and they do a risk acceptance of some of those deficiencies, right? So there's clear purview, there's clear awareness of what is needed at that layer, right, within the government. But when we have providers that are contractors, they don't have that visibility, right? It's really visibility from that standpoint, right? So really, this specific proposed rule, essentially, is kind of the to me, it's like it's finally happening, right? They're finally saying, hey, contractors, at the end of this, was it 60-day comment period, and then at the final, whenever this rule does get published, you're gonna have to put in clauses for current cybersecurity maturity model certification level, whatever it might be, right? At the time of award, right? So at this time, there isn't a cybersecurity model certification. It doesn't exist at the time until the final rule gets published. So what companies are doing now, they're doing something called a JSVA, Joint Surveillance Vulnerability Assessments, right, with current C3 PAOs to kind of be proactive and say, hey guys, hey DoD, we already meet all these 110 requirements, right? And those are companies that are likely going to be part of that phased approach that they're going to be taking. So they're going to include DoD contracts or the specific rule and these specific clauses within. They're going to phase these in within a 3-year period. Now, I don't. As for the number of companies that need to do this, the number is massive, right? And we can all talk about the prime contractors, right? We all know the big boys that make weapons, that send tanks, create weapon shell. We all know who they are. Yeah, people in the space. They're probably already performing this and then some, based on the past discretions per se, right? Look at, all you got to do is look at copycats from other countries of what they've got and what we've got. That's all I got to say, right? You'll see a Chinese or fighter jet that looks eerily similar to the F-35. I wonder why, right? So that's what we're trying to protect, right? We're trying to protect our nation's IP, intellectual property, and make sure it doesn't get into the wrong hands. But it's a long time coming, right? People have been talking about CMMC for a long time. You've had naysayers out there, people that won't even consider looking at the requirements, the cybersecurity requirements, until it affects their bottom line. This is what it comes down to, right? Until that sweet contracting money goes away, nobody's going to care, right? But again, this is a big this is a big milestone, and it's going to be a very interesting next few months as this final rule gets published, and as companies start seeing these contract clauses in their contracts. So there's a lot of good people out there that know a lot about CMC, specifically the rulemaking. I think Jacob Horn's a big one. I'd say follow him for any estimating timelines. He's got a lot of information, and his posts out there on LinkedIn are really outstanding. So that's all I got. I mean, really, I'm excited for this because there's a lot of work to be done, and we'll see really like the landscape of this once it does get published. And I feel like a panic is going to happen with a lot of these companies, and they're just going to scramble to get stuff done. And then what I don't want to happen is that they half-ass implementations, and that will leave our infrastructure and it will leave our critical infrastructure as well as the DIB companies. It will just leave us insecure. We don't want that. We want to protect our information.
And there are some companies that are already leaning forward on this, right? So like I kind of talked about it a little bit, like, hey, feel the pain that we feel, right? And there may be some things that are more stringent. Because again, I haven't looked at you said it was 57 pages? Like how long?
So the proposed rule, the documentation is 57 pages. Yeah. But if you read through all the rules, the DFARS rules themselves, 119, 7019 and then 7021, they're pretty decent reads. Right. But I would say these proposed rule changes are long because they include comments, right? They include comments and responses to some public comments, right? So when it comes to actual content, I think I was listening to the Jacob Horn's podcast the other day, and he said there's probably only about 13 pages or so of content that is new in the proposed rule. So you don't have to read the whole thing. Okay. Because it does have like historical text and everything. But yeah, there's a good 13 pages of it, like that say, hey, look, these are the contract clauses that should be added. They give you like a little template of what it should say, right? They're telling these contracting officers in the military, right, that are working for the, Department of the Air Force, right? These guys are going to be putting these contract clauses in these contracts, right? And then the DIB's going to have to, these companies are going to have to abide by CMMC.
No, absolutely. So as we progress through this conversation, I realized that I should not have gone third. It's like being the Kings of Comedy. Like I'm not the Bernie Mac of this show. Like Chris just dropped the mic. No. But with that being said, I'm going to read my pseudo ad, and I'm going to go into a little bit of my thoughts. So just want to let everybody know that the Other Side of the Firewall podcast is growing fast with thousands of downloads, hundreds of unique listeners, and a rapidly expanding YouTube audience. Every week, we reach a diverse group of listeners, from career starters and journeymen and women to C-suite executives and senior leaders in the field. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, our content is tailored to provide value across all experience levels. So if you're a brand or a marketer and you're trying to reach a very unique niche audience of these type of people, then definitely check us out. We're the Other Side of the Firewall, the Other Side of the FW, the Ask a CISSP. Hit up the email address, the Other Side of the FW at Gmail, and I will send you our rates. We're definitely expanding pretty quickly. We have over 70 years of experience amongst all of the different professionals. Like you heard the clinic that Shannon and Chris just did on CMMC. So like this is definitely your target podcast when it comes to cybersecurity to reach people of all levels. So hit us up. That could be your ad instead of my ad, right? And the Other Side of the Firewall is a proud product of RAM Cyber Solutions and Assessments, or DBA, RAM Cyber, right? it's a new thing. I will have more to talk about in the near future, and CMMC will be right up our alley. So that goes into my part of the discussion. Like we're trying to check all the boxes. I'm trying to get my certifications, all that good stuff. I have a bunch of packages and things to fill out. I left the Department of Defense October of 2022. Yeah, that's when I started my transition. That's when I started doing my skill bridges and things of that nature. I brought up CMMC in all of my pitches to try to sell myself as being your security guy, all the way up to being your VCISO or your CISO or things of that nature. Like that, the CISO is a little bit punched above the belt, but I kept bringing up CMMC to all those who would listen, and I got the buy-in from technicians. I got the buy-in all the way up to solutions architects. Like, yes, definitely get this on our radar. We would love to talk more about this because it's a requirement that's coming out. And then when you hit that C-suite, it will get shut down because they're like, the government is not serious. The rules are not coming to fruition anytime soon, and we're not going to invest the money right now on something that may disappear in a couple of years. Well, it's been a couple of years, and here it is. So you should probably, if not, I'm sure they all have their wheels spinning, right? Those who are primes, those who are going to be sub to the primes, they all have to get their stuff together in order to fulfill these rules and what have you. And I just want to let you guys know out there are no hard feelings. There's just contracts and things of that nature that need to be filled out for RAM Cyber to provide you your solutions and things of that nature. Like, I don't hold any grudges. I'm here to help. All right. So if you're a company who has to get themselves in line with CMMC 2.0, I could be here to help you in the very near future. So I just want you to keep that on your radar, and you know who you are. Because we looked each other in the eyes, and you're like, meh, you balked at it. So there it is. But with all that out of the way, like, in all seriousness, yeah, there's a lot coming down the pipe, and it's all good stuff, right? Like when we're initially talking about FedRAMP and things of that nature, again, it was the same thing. It was like, the government's not going to do that, and here we are, right? Like I talk about FedRAMP all the time in some of my meetings, and when it comes to solutions, they have to be FedRAMP like certified and ready to go. You have to go to the marketplace. You have to go find it. It's going to be the same thing here. You're going to be not allowed on the marketplace, or you're not going to be allowed to come into a meeting and team or partner with a company if you don't have your stuff together. So these are all musts. So I'm preaching to the choir. Like there's people at the top of the levels, like now trying to figure out how do we, Chris said, how do we shoehorn this in pretty quick? And that's not the solution. The solution is like, how do we implement this to standard and above, right? Like you're going to have to get your stuff together, because if this is going to be the threshold, if this is going to be the standard, then what is 3.0 going to look like, or 2.5, or whatever they go in between to 3.0, and so on and so forth, because they're going to find you and they're going to figure out that, okay, you checked the boxes, but you were not completely where you need to be, right? Like you fudged the system. So it'd be better for you to be upright and ready and spend that money or whatever it takes for you to get to where you need to be, than for the future of CMMC to have to keep trying to change in order to get you to be within standard, right? So I just don't want that. I don't want 2 years from now for CMMC 3.5, 4.5, or whatever to have to roll out because of these businesses is not doing their due diligence and their due care and things of that nature. So that's my only fear, because I think this is perfect, but I think the writing's on the wall. People drug their feet getting here. Now they're going to have to try to quickly expedite and get ready. And that's my fear, is that now you have to come up with a new set of more stringent standards in order to force people to be where they need to be. So that's just my 2 cents. But so we'll see how it all works out, how it all shakes out. But like you guys said, the big boys, right? Those who make missiles and shoot people into space, they're going to have their stuff together. But what about all the subs and all the smaller teams? Like, are they going to be ready? Because this is an investment of both time and money. And if you, again, drug your feet getting here, then you're going to have to rapidly expedite this. And I just don't want you cutting corners.
And see, I feel a little different from you on that. So I think the big boys, I know you said people you looked in the face and whatnot, so I don't think you were talking to the Boeing CEO, right? But
No, I was at Jacobs with knife
yeah,
hand.
yeah.
No.
But the thing is, those folks that are the large ones that have a lot of government contracts, I think those are the ones that drag their feet, right? Because it would cost so much more for them to implement because of all the contracts they have with DoD, right? Your Boeings, your Lockheeds, your Honeywells, like all of those big folks like that. They're like, we're not putting it like Chris was saying as well. We're not putting the time and money into that because it's just not something that's absolutely required right now. The smaller places, right? Like they didn't have a lot to implement it over. Like they don't have a large workforce that has, you know, a bunch of contracts out there, right? To where it's easier for them to do. You know what I mean? Like assuming they have, you know, the personnel in place that are taking care of some of that stuff, which is kind of the situation with us. Like I'm not on a large contract, right? I'm not in the Boeing, Lockheed, Booz, you know, space. So like for us, we do a lot of cyber work, right? Like it's not just in my location. At other locations, we do a lot of cyber work. So a lot of that stuff we've already taken care of, right? Like we're making sure that CUI is protected and things of that nature, right? Like on our networks, you know what I'm saying? Not just for DoD, because I'm on .mil networks as well. But like we've done a lot of this already, you know what I mean? So if with the self-attestation, like that's come up before as well, right? Like companies just checking the box saying they did it when they didn't really. But I think the big boys are just not gonna. They didn't take it serious, and now they're like, okay, well now we got to put the money into it, right?
I'm more worried about the subs, right? Because subs have MSPs, right? Yeah. And we need to know if those MSPs are, you know, processing, storing, you know, transmitting FCI or CUI, right? And are they scanning the FCI CUI, right?
Yeah.
That could potentially put them in scope. So the scoping discussion is going to be the key for a lot of these subs, and having that discussion with your primes, it's going to be freaking it's going to be so critical, right? Like, do they process FCI? Do they know, or do they know they're working with CUI even? Like, you know, is a certain part or is a certain component of this CUI, like, is this just something commercial off the shelf, right? Are we modifying it for DoD for needs, right? Then that could be potentially FCI CUI, right? So a lot of that needs to be taken into account. I think the subs and maybe subs of subs, right? We don't that could be the big CMMC push as well. They might only have to do level 1, but they'd still have to attest to it, right? To some degree, maybe self-attest at level 1, but still, they would have to be held accountable by their subs and then the primes, right?
So I will tell you this: if you were in the DoD space, so like you call it CUI, I call it CUI, right? We call it CUI is what we say it is, but like if you are in the DoD space, you are doing that training every year. I assure you.
100%. Yeah.
I assure you, every year, like I had to do it like 3 months ago. You know what I mean? Like we are doing that training, and you know what it is, and you know if you're dealing with it, you know if you're sending it. Like
it's
they're
free
very
too. The CUI training is like a completely free thing from, I think it's from a DoD website. I think it's usalearning.gov, right?
Yep.
DoD mandatory control and classified information training. It's all right there.
Absolutely. So sorry for the pregnant pause. I was trying to bring up a list, which I did not bring up a complete list, but just to plug some people, right? Just free advertising for people that I've interacted with on the podcast. So you have your Darich Phillips from Aspire Cyber. You have your Jacob Hills from GRC Academy. You have Darren King Jr. from Early Defense. You have Paragon. You have Cybermite with Yvonne Rivera. Like, there's a ton of smaller companies out here, just so to speak, right? Like, there's smaller companies that are growing to be mid-sized to large companies in the very near future. But they're at the front lines. They're the help and things of that nature. So look out for these people. Check out previous episodes, because we've been talking about CMMC 2.0 for at least a year and a half. Because it's been coming down the pipe. So check out these people, see what they have to say. Like you said, go to the source. Check out your Jacob Horns out there who are is he Cyber AB?
No, he's with Summit 7, but he's
Summit 7.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, so check out the other information. They've been releasing information for a while now on how the rules are going to affect you and what you need to do to get certified and ready to go. So there's been a ton of people. Like I need to get Jacob Horn on the show, but I know he's been on GRC Academy, so I had to hit him up. Like, hey, remember me? Did you talk some CMC over here as well? So, but yeah, it's coming down the pipe. Get ready, get certified, and just be very knowledgeable of it before it smacks you in the face. Because it's going to happen. Hit us up so we release 14 to 20 episodes every month. So we're not going anywhere, people. Right? We're at 633 or 34 episodes. I think by the end of this week it'll be 36. So 636 episodes. Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. So that way you can stay abreast of this. We have a newsletter that comes out every Friday that rolls everything up. So if you haven't heard all of our stuff throughout the week, you can quickly go there and you can access everything that's been talked about for the week. Plus, it has extra stuff in it as well. So slice of life stuff, talking about the future of the company. Look, I get to say that now, and just what we're doing with the podcast. Or we've been added to Repflix, so REPPED Flix FLIX. It's curated content, people of color who are in this space. So I'll talk about more of that on the Friday episode. And Dr. T and what she's doing over there on that platform, which is amazing. So hit us up at all the websites that go by our name, The Other Side of the Firewall, The Other Side of the FW. Hit me up personally. I am at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me on all the social media platforms. And where can they find you, Chris?
You can find me on LinkedIn under Chris Abacon, last name spelled A. Bacon.
There it is. Stay safe. Stay secure.